wasn't going to say 6 out of 529 versus 7 out of 529, are they more likely to pick the course they want? Or if the culture becomes, and I don't know how you measure that scientifically as to whether students would or would not do that if they have those choices in terms of, are they picking a course because it is better for the GPA than another? I feel for music students. I feel for art students. I feel for kids whose GPAs are routinely lower. I did a study when I worked in another school district because they were talking about class rank. And what to do, where I did a study and I studied the top 50 kids for the last 6 graduating classes. Music kids were underrepresented, art kids were underrepresented based on the percentage they were in the population. And that's because they had to make a decision to take a course that was. Now, these were systems that didn't rank. So they were trying to decide if they were going to ranking. And that was one of the reasons they decided not to go to ranking, because they were afraid that if they ranked, then music kids and art kids would say, you know what, now you're telling me it matters if I'm 12 versus whether I'm 15. And one of the things philosophically we haven't talked about here yet is whether any of this truly is motivating for kids or not. There is lots of research that would say grades and GPAs are not motivating for kids. Now, I don't think we need to debate that in terms of what you personally feel to be true, right? Because I don't have anything other than things I've read to say that to you. That non-graded systems don't make kids less competitive, right, than graded systems, that they don't strive for those types of things, because that's not internal enough, the way most people are made up. Although I do know there are kids who play games. Play games is the wrong word. There are kids who work to be #1 or work to be in the top 10, right? And they do what they need to do to be that, because that's a goal for them. That is a great goal for them.
Strategy.
Right, exactly right. And the system benefits certain things, and so they do those certain things. And this system will benefit certain things, so they will do those things if that is their goal. Probably whether we report it or not.
What was the difference? It's like gymnastics, right? Where the difference between number 1 and number 10 is 100. What was number 1's GPA last year? What was number 10's GPA?
The differences are small and they're calculated incorrectly mathematically because we're taking it to too many decimal points. Mathematics says that you cannot do that, but we do it anyway.
But this will change that too by adding the plus and minus system.
True.
So you're not going to, it's not going to be as close anymore because there's more differentiation between the grades. I agree with what I agree with what you were saying about we don't want the kids, we would prefer the kids take what they want to take, but we're not gonna change their minds. They're still gonna do it anyway. So I just
think
don't know
it'll
that
lessen
Some of them,
It'll
you're not
lessen
gonna
that
change your minds
group
because
over
they're
time.
that kind of person.
and those are the ones who are doing, I guess I don't think that this decision is going to be, I don't think whether or not we report class rank is going to make a difference between whether the kid does or doesn't work the system to get as high as they can.
I think it'll lessen it over time though. I feel like you're always gonna have that group of students that want to be in the top 10 of the class. They want to be number 1. But I think it will take a student looking at their transcript as how they're doing as an individual. What courses did I take? How did I perform in those courses that I took? Instead of another thing on their transcript that says, and now how did I do compared to my peers? So they're having reflection for their own capabilities instead of comparing themselves.
Yeah, so it's like,
And I know you want to compete with others. I mean, that's a skill, that is important and valuable too. But maybe it makes them be more acceptable of their own strengths and focus on their own strengths and not compare it to somebody else that might be stronger in something in another area and now has a higher GPA.
just, it's sort of like what I found with running for myself. You end up in running kind of competing against yourself, more so than, because you're out running, how fast did I run this 5K? I'm not really necessarily, would look at where I fell in the number of runners and want to be, on the top of your age group or whatever, but mostly, for me anyway, in running, it becomes more of how have I improved, or where do I'm not gonna lie, I would still probably be looking at my number, because I still remember what number I was back in 1990, but I can see the value of, you're gonna be able to say I was cum laude, or, you know, magna cum laude, you'll be able to say that, and so that, kind of implies a ranking to me. And, you know, it does rank you, because think about a kid who goes to a super, super competitive school. You know, to say I was number 20 at X school where everybody has a GPA that's sky high, whereas someone else could say they were number 20 out of a school district where the kids don't have it. It does mean different things in different places. So I think they're still going to be competitive. There's still going to be kids who are going to be paying attention to it, and you're not going to stop those kids no matter what you do. They're type A, and they're going to be paying attention to what number they are out to the 5th decimal.
And if they wanna know it, they can find out.
Well,
Then
that's
they're gonna find
and
out.
what you're
Yes.
saying may be true, and let me just say, I cannot relate to your running metaphor. Can't do it, don't run, don't even understand how people do it, so. But I will say this, there is a huge emphasis in higher education towards the synthesis of knowledge rather than your GPA. And I can't tell you how many residencies I've been to where they keep telling you, stop looking at your GPA, stop looking at your GPA. We want you to synthesize the knowledge and you know, apply that. And so if that's what they're going towards anyway, what's wrong with taking the emphasis off of the GPA a little earlier? Because that's what they're headed for. When they go, we're talking about students that are looking at their GPA for college, right? That's what their emphasis is, to go to college. And so when they get there, they're going to be met with this idea of your GPA is not as important as the information you're learning here, how you apply it, how you synthesize that moving forward. So in my opinion, I think that it doesn't hurt them to remove the emphasis off of their GPA so much as their knowledge.
Well, I think they're still getting their GPA.
Well, they will.
And, I mean, in colleges, a lot of the majors are GPA controlled. I mean, you have to pay
That's true,
attention
but
to your.
I'm not saying, I'm not
But-
telling you that
Yeah.
that they're telling you to ignore your GPA.
But the rank,
But-
I think, you're
but-
saying.
I think the most important thing for a lot of these programs is how you synthesize the knowledge, what is being learned and how you apply it.
The most important thing for me is that we don't stop recognizing kids for their academic achievement. And that we do it because, you know, when you're a track star and you come in first place, they tell you were in first place and you get the accolades that come along with that. Academics has to be treated the same way. That is my one and only thing that I'm focused on, is making sure that students are recognized somehow for their academic achievement.
Is the discussion, are we really deciding whether or not we're putting it on the report card, on the transcript? Is that really the discussion? When you say whether or not to recognize it or not recognize it, it's still being calculated. They still have a rank. So are we really deciding whether or not to put it on the transcript or not? Because I think you can recognize class rank without putting it on the transcript. And then the kids who want to disclose what their class rank is, they can get that information and they can have that information sent to the universities that they're
Yeah.
applying to. So if the discussion is whether or not it has to be on the transcript, I don't think it has to be on the transcript. I think people can decide to get that information and send it. But I think people think it's silly when you say, well, I don't want a number from 1 to 10 because I don't want you to know which order you were in. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. I get the whole college part, and if it's not helping you when you apply to different colleges, then we don't really need it on the transcript. If it's just a matter of recognizing students for their achievement within Penn Ridge, and that's important to them that they accomplish that within Penn Ridge, then we can still acknowledge the class rank without putting it on the transcript. Because the transcript is more about getting into college. That's really the focus of your transcript. And I think that the focus for kids on class rank here is I was number 1 or I was number whatever, right? And so what about that for being kind of a middle of the road solution? Where we still acknowledge it, we still recognize it, but we don't put it on the transcript.
Yeah. I think to me it doesn't.
Are you saying that when they say the top 10, they must say them in order?
In order.
I still think it should be in order.
And, okay, so those top 10 students, you know, their class rank and that's announced at graduation, but it's not.
Well, it's not enough.
It's not verbalized, but people know.
I mean,
Um,
if you look at what we've been doing so far,
already announced She's
it's
saying it.
already
she's
in the
saying it's
information.
still announced in order.
You know what I mean? It's not like we're going from before we were announcing it and it was well known. We've already been trying to hide the information and the kids have to find it. And did that change the outcome? Did kids stop trying to get that higher class rank? No.
Oh,
So
that's-
I don't think it makes a difference.
Well, I say we still do it the way that we've done it at graduation. You know, announce them in order, but not with their rank attached to it when you say their name, and take them away from the transcripts. And if the kid really wants to know, or a parent really wants to know for their kid, we have the tools to access what their number is, but it's just not on that transcript.
And then the kids who are taking those music classes like you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
That information is no longer on the transcript, and if the universities that they're applying to don't really factor that in anyway, then it doesn't matter to them. The rank is still going to be there, whether we report it or not. And so the only thing that those kids are losing out on is maybe they're not in that top 10, but they knew they were gonna not be in that top 10 when they made the choice to take those classes to begin with. So it's not negatively impacting those kids who are making that decision to take the
Yeah,
music
that's
classes.
kind of what I
Yes,
wanted to know
because
too,
throughout the
is
knowledge.
what kids were in the top 10, you know, and what, I guess none of them took music.
No, it's not none, they were underrepresented. It's
In the
not none,
in the top 10.
well, I didn't talk top 50.
And isn't it about, like what you're saying, is letting them choose what information they want to be exposed to, what knowledge they want to engage in, rather than strategizing for the best. I do think that a hybrid is an order.
Can I try to synthesize where we are?
Yeah.
Because there's obviously lots of things
We
there.
can just keep going.
And so we have spent, I don't know how long we just spent, we only really spent time talking about 2 bullets, right? We only spent time talking about eliminating class rank and top 10 students, right, 2 of the 3 on the bottom. And so I just wanna make sure if I ignored those 2 bullets,
Mhm.
is there any feedback that the board has on anything else that we recommended this evening?
I like
Right,
the
and so-
Kumai and super
Yeah,
Kumai.
I do, I really like
Because the
that.
sense
I
is
like
silence is consent, right? That
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
else you went, yeah, that makes sense,
Yeah.
yeah, we can move
And I
forward,
like
that
the
type of
plus
thing.
minus.
Right,
Yeah.
everything else,
Oh, I
the
think
college
the
course
plus
thing made
minus
sense in
is
terms of trying to incentivize that. The AP and the changing of the weighting in terms of, I mean, we're gonna gather more feedback, and there was a meeting in December that we'll come back and kind of say, hey, let's synthesize what we talked about, give you another opportunity to have some conversation, see whether based on that feedback, we recommend changes to kind of this slide and the slide before that in terms of those pieces. That,
Since you said silence is consent, I'm absolutely not in. I know that. Yes, I know you know that, but I'm telling the rest of the board and the other people, right, I am not in favor of eliminating class rank. I'm certainly not going back to a GPA that encourages study halls, which is one of the reasons, if you read Dr. Zelensky's white paper that was written in 2002, and Dr. Scheid has a copy, and I'm sure would share it with anybody who wants to read it. And like all of her papers, it's extraordinarily well written, and it gives out the rationale for why that system was implemented way back then. One of the reasons was because so many students opted for study halls so that they could get a high GPA, because there wasn't a divisor, there wasn't any factor for the number of credits. Now, one of the other things that was changed at the time was the requirement of the number of credits to graduate from high school was raised. So that helped in a way, but this was the other piece of that, especially for our best students, to encourage them to take more courses, not to sit in a study hall. And I'm absolutely opposed to any of our students, frankly, sitting in a study hall. I think they should all be engaged in some sort of coursework when they're here. We're paying our teachers to do that. Our students should have that responsibility as well, as far as I'm concerned. It shouldn't be, let's sit around for 2 periods, we can get all of our homework done, then we can go home and play video games or whatever we want to do. I understand that.
Some of us went to sports.
Well, some of the sports, but
Yeah.
but there are lots of people who accomplish the sports and still do all the classes here, so that can be done.
Well, I
So
mean,
I'm opposed to that change. I think what we should do is be fixing the class rank. the idea of the incoming people that transfer into the school. The idea, at that time, there were no cyber courses, and there were no, or very few of the college courses that factored in. There were a lot of things that weren't taken into account when this was written, and when it was implemented, that we could now fix. But that's what I would rather do, is fix it. Even if you don't put it on the transcript, frankly, I don't care one way or the other about that. I think that's something that students may care about, colleges may not care about, but I don't think we should do away with it.
To Peter's point then, couldn't you, require enough credits to make sure that kids have to take a full course load, and that way you eliminate, then if you get rid of the divisor, it won't still encourage kids to just not take a class and take only the AP classes so that they don't water down their GPA. So maybe that would be the middle we were talking about, that would be like a method to maybe get to that middle. And just, I know this is the complete opposite direction of where we were going with this, but a lot of parents want us to recognize the valedictorian, and so we've heard from people too, why can't there be a valedictorian, which is in the complete opposite direction of where you're going with this. And then I just had one question about going back to the calculations and how we changed honors, academic, and AP. Is that now in line with all of the surrounding districts? Are we now more comparable to all of those other districts? Because I know our old system was not comparable to what the other districts are doing. And so I'm wondering if now this puts us more in line with what all of them are doing.
You mean with plus minus, or you mean with incentive?
The weight.
With the weight.
The weight. So you studied in closest specifically, right? You really want to look
Yeah,
at
it
the
is
different
close.
colleges, different high schools. There's a whole spreadsheet of what they're worth.
I think
I don't know why we don't recognize our valedictorian or our salutatorian. It would make perfect sense to me.
Do these other schools that have gotten rid of the class rank, they don't do valedictorian either?
Some
am I
do,
assuming?
some do not.
Okay.
Some literally don't rank and then announce the top two. But that's what they do, you ask the question, that's the answer.
We didn't rank it, but here's who's number one.
I was also confused on, when you said the districts that were studied, and then I think you said half were and half weren't. So the ones that are listed here, are they the ones that don't have class rank?
Can you go back to the next one?
Or
2 slides.
50% of them do and 50% of them don't?
So if you look at the slides, the slides that are listed up there, the bottom two bullets, right? It is 10 of, if you count us, it's 10 of the 13 Bucks County schools. And then it's a lot, if you look at the list of the surrounding school districts, we did some of the ones that are geographically close to us as well as what I would call competitive school districts. When you look at the top 10, if you look at the top 10 school districts in the state, I forget if it's 8 or 9 of them don't rank. And they're routinely the same top 10, they just shuffle, right? The TEs, there are a very common list with the top 10 performing school districts. It's either 8 or 9 of them do not rank. So we looked at some of them to get a sense for what are they doing and why are they doing it, because they have top performing students, right? Whatever systematic planning our kids are doing, they're doing it as well, right? In terms of what they're trying to do. So they were the ones we studied and got information from. And so when you compare it to those, it was fewer than half, and that's the first bullet, that actually report class.
Can we get a broken down version of which ones do and which ones
You
don't?
certainly can. We have that spreadsheet. Yep, maybe we can send that to you. Okay? Yes,
Maybe we should just do what's the thing from Talladega Nights, if you're not first, you win.
What a great idea.
Dr. Price, can you go back to that slide again? From the board, before we move on to public comment, because my guess is there will be some other, and either here or through online. Is there anything from any other boards besides class rank that anybody has any feedback on, or any level of concern or clarification on, or?
Just,
Because there were other things we talked about.
the college classes that, like the yoga
Yes.
reference.
Yes.
So they're not just automatically beginning, like this is a.
That would be an academic course. It would be like getting a B in one of our PE classes.
FYI, that
And-
course is challenging.
I'm not. And the only thing that we'll say out loud when we get to policy, because policy 214 will have to be part of this, we are going to put in language that does allow the administration to make the determination that a college course is AP rank worthy. Because we do occasionally have students who get beyond our sequence of classes. And so if you had a student who's a math genius, who takes all of our math courses, and so we decided they should take a Johns Hopkins differential equations online course, we're not going to solely give that honors credit. So we're talking about the routine courses that most students are taking primarily at Bucks County Community College or online somewhere. Those courses will either be academic or honors. We are going to embed language that allows us to give AP credit, because there are some courses in some situations everyone would look at and say, well, that's clearly an AP course, right? It's probably beyond an AP
That's
course
fair.
or whatever. And it's for those students that is such a rare situation that we'll put it in policy. I didn't want to muddy the waters here. But there could be people or people listening at home who are going to say, well, wait a second, what about my kid who took? You know, and those types of situations. So we will allow that. The high school administration and the superintendent or his or her designee will make that determination based on the course and the situation.
Well, I'll be curious to see what so you're going to talk to, you said parents in one of the things too, you're gonna be talking to parents at the parents meeting?
And so, right, so we have parent councils that are coming. We're also thinking about how do we then gather feedback from kids and parents in terms of what that might look like before we get to a December piece. So,
Okay,
right.
good.
And we'll be able to find out how we compare to how our new weighting system would compare to the other districts.
The only last thought I had, follow up with Megan, that the visibility in Power School for the kids and parents, not necessarily on the
Correct.
transcript
Right.
yet.
Yep.
Because I've also heard that from
As to
parents.
why. We just have to figure out why that is. And I don't know
And
if
if
it's
it's-
something we decided or whether we didn't pay for or I
And
don't
if
know.
it's
what
something,
we- We'll figure it out.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's marking period,
Right,
that's okay.
right. Yep, yeah, that's good. We will figure that out. Okay. Dr. Shine, can I suggest that we move the final, is that okay? Can we
The
get
final
the
agenda
final
item,
agenda
yeah.
item? Right, it's not time sensitive, so.
Absolutely, we'll move that to the December meeting.
Can we move on and then hold on again?
So, for everything that was, so it's Capstone, ESL Science, and the reading and computer applications proposals, they're all going to move forward for a vote, right? December 3rd, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so we're back to public comment. Anyone? Pardon? No, we're not.
Right here?
Yeah, just state your name and municipality.
Good evening. My name is Deb Yurcha. I want to thank everyone tonight first for doing all this work. I had never been to a board meeting before, against the wishes of other people on the board who have asked me to attend. I did bring my daughter, who is currently a senior right now, and she is one of your top 10 students, and she is. But unfortunately, our last name starts with a Y. So with the new program that would be instilled, thankfully would not be for her, I think it would be quite a deterrent for her. So I actually have a funny story for you. My maiden name was Waldman, and I met my husband, and his last name was Yurchak, and I turned to my mother-in-law, my soon-to-be mother-in-law, and I said, I will never marry your son because I don't want to move down in the alphabet. Because as a product of the, oh, this is being taped, 70s, 80s, I had to sit in the back of the classroom because you always sat alphabetically. And the greatest thing to me about college was that I got to move and sit wherever I wanted to and enjoy that feature. Same thing, I didn't want to marry my husband and have to move down in the alphabet. So I don't feel that the top 10 student alphabetically really resolves anything for anybody, other than, and I guess I should not probably put this on tape, but the current #1 ranked student, last name starts with an E, and the A is ranked number 9. So how fair is that to the poor guy who did all that hard work and got to that ranking of #1, and he gets called 5 people afterwards because the person, number 9 got his A. So it doesn't seem like a fair opportunity, I think. I'm in the business world, we all work very hard to, I wouldn't say beat each other up, but we are certainly, I get up every day, I get dressed, I hit that traffic. I am here to serve a purpose and to ultimately get higher and higher in my ranking. I always look at my peers where I'm working, how am I doing compared to them, how am I doing compared to myself. I love your analogy of the track star. I agree with you, when you come into first place. I love a lot of what you offered. I don't really agree with the top 10 students because I do have a younger student, and I just think alphabetically just throws it out there for anybody. So the incentive for my poor daughter, who is now, sorry, getting emotional, ranked 6th, to be thrown at the 10th is like, all right, watch this. Watch me. I can't believe I'm getting emotional. I guess because I know she's leaving me soon. The other thing, I don't really understand the point of view about why is it so bad to know where you stand in terms of other people? Maybe it incentivizes some people to go the other direction, rather than hurting other students that feel they didn't do well. But maybe it helps them to move up a little bit, try a little bit harder, maybe take a class that's a little bit harder. I don't see, or getting rid of knowing where you are, I don't see what the point of it is. I don't really know the board all that well, but I did hear you mention you're a businessman, correct? You own your company.
I don't know.
Sorry.
So you should go down, $100 million company will take my phone there.
In your company, there's CEOs, there's CFOs,
Absolutely.
and there's levels of people, and I want my daughter to understand how the world works. And by putting off things like class rank and changing things around, it doesn't teach her, that is ultimately what school is for, what college is for. How is she gonna go into the business world, how is she going to the world if she doesn't know where she's ranked and what she's doing?